you hear a knock on the door, and someone just simply goes and just opens the front door without looking outside. And in they come. Typically 2 or 3 home invader robbers will rush in. In the first 30 seconds, they're going to beat you down, they're going to secure you somehow, get everybody in the house all together, and just be in control.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. Our guest today is founder of CrimeDoctor.com, Chris E. McGoey, an internationally known author, trainer, speaker, a private investigator. He's also a security consultant. He's an expert in the fields of security management, crime and loss prevention, investigations, and premises liability. And he specializes in the anticipation, recognition, and appraisal of crime risk. He's here on Reluctant Preppers to talk to us about what we can do as individual homeowners and families to increase the physical security and safety of our residences, considerations both from outside and from within the home, and in a special way to talk with us about what a safe room is, what it offers to increase the security and safety of a homeowner, and what considerations and resources people should be aware of when considering whether adding a safe room to their new or existing home is the right choice for them. We'll also try to field some viewer questions that have been submitted over the past week in anticipation of this, and we welcome Mr. McGoey here as an expert to our channel. Thank you for joining us here, Mr. McGoey.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Now, on that topic, if you could give us just a brief understanding, your biography is extensive on your website, CrimeDoctor.com. It sounds there as though you carry a record number of certifications, many different fields of expertise in the area of security. But if you could help our homeowner, family members know from your standpoint, what of your background specifically prepares you to come here and talk to us about the physical security of their premises, of their home?
Well, many things, including I'm old, so I've been around a lot of years and I've seen a lot of things. I've been in the business of crime prevention and security management for 4.5 decades. I've operated my own security consulting business and private investigation business for over 31 years. What I do largely is I survey properties and I evaluate properties. And I tell people how to reduce the crime risk on virtually any property type. I've worked with most of all of them around the country and around the world. So I think what my total of my education, training, and experience in all these years have just taught me how to do the evaluation and what are all the tools and what are all the possible solutions that you could apply to almost any given situation. And then when I look at an individual property, case by case, then I just have a good menu to choose from based on how serious the risk is or how small the budget is or what the circumstances are. There's a solution to every problem. Some are very, very simple. Some are complex and expensive. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
And now on your website, CrimeDoctor.com, you've got articles, pages specifically devoted to home security and home invasion prevention and survival. So if you could, with the limited time available here in this format, hit some of the high points that press to your mind when you're approaching an individual homeowner about steps that they should take to assess and to improve the physical security of their residence.
Well, you'd have to clarify for me. Are we talking about home invasion or are we talking about burglary?
Well, let's start with burglary for a few minutes and then switch the topic to home invasion, if you would.
Okay, because we're talking about two different criminal types for the most part. A burglar, almost by definition, they're going to burglarize an unoccupied dwelling. So your single-family home, your condominium, your apartment, the criminal does not want you home. They want to be able to break in or walk in, steal all of your stuff, and walk out undetected. So it's that simple. So ordinary common home security techniques will be effective against this type of a criminal. Either with home burglary or home invasion robbery. If you think of your home as a box, it's got 6 sides to the box, a ceiling, a floor, 4 walls, and the only entryway into the box is through doors and through windows. And when you think of it in that way, it becomes a simple matter. Well, I could fortify these windows or those doors. Again, depending on the risk. If you live in a upscale area, a low crime area, then you don't need to do too much. Probably just closing your door and locking the door, latching the window is good enough. If you're in a high-risk area or you have a high-risk lifestyle, then maybe you need to do a little more. Maybe you need to fortify those openings a little better. And there's techniques and strategies to do that. And I won't go into that unless you ask me specifically.
When you look at residential properties, what are the most common gaping vulnerabilities that you see in that regard?
Sure, people leave their doors and windows standing open. I mean, I could take you into almost any neighborhood in any city, drive down the street. We'll find a home, a single-family home now, with the garage door standing open. And the door leading inside the house from the garage is unlocked. Or the front door is standing open for ventilation in the summer. Or the windows are open for ventilation. And this is during the day and at nighttime. You can literally drive down the street and pick the house that is easily accessible. And that's the way criminals work. I mean, they're not that smart. They're not that talented. They don't have a lot of skills. They're probably intoxicated on alcohol or drugs. So they don't want to do a lot of heavy lifting. They're going to take the path of least resistance. So they're looking for the easy target. So that's obviously one of the strategies. In your neighborhood, you don't want to be the easiest target in your neighborhood. If a burglar has got his mind set on burglarizing someone, let him get someone else. Let him get the guy down the street, but not you. So if your place presents itself from the street as being one that is more secure, more often than not, they'll just bypass you.
If we could transition the discussion to what's different about a home invasion rather than a typical burglary.
A home invader is a different animal. He's a robber. That's why they call them home invasion robbers. They want you home, unlike the burglar. They want to get access either to you personally, for some reason, or they want you home so they don't have to deal with alarm systems, maybe dogs. They want you to direct them to all the good stuff. You know, where the hidden money is, the hidden jewels, the hidden weapons, the drugs, whatever they're into, you're going to help them get that. Plus, once they got control of everyone in the house, they could take their sweet time and they could ransack the whole house. Let me kind of give you a typical scenario. You might be home any given weekend night with your family watching TV. Your kids might be off in their other room, and you hear a knock on the door. And someone just simply goes and just opens the front door without looking outside. And in they come. Typically 2 or 3 home invader robbers will rush in. In the first 30 seconds, they're going to beat you down. They're going to secure you somehow, get everybody in the house all together, and just be in control. Once they have your household and you in control, they could take their time and they can completely ransack your house. I hear from victims all the time that the robbers spent the night in the house. They took everything. They loaded up all your stuff and put it in your car, took your keys that they have access to, and they could drive off in it. They can make sure your alarm system's disabled. They can make sure your phones are disabled. You can't call for help. They can get access to your credit cards, your ATM cards, your passcodes. I mean, they can get everything. They get access to your computer information and pretty much take their time. And those are just property crimes. Now, if they have other interests, if they want to assault you, they want to hurt you, they want to kill you, they want to molest people in the household, that could occur too. So it's a very, very serious situation. So to that extent, you want to prepare your family and your home to deal with that home invader.
And in preparing for a home invasion, what are some of the first steps that people should look to?
Well, it's a graduation from the burglary preparedness in preparing those doors and those windows. Those are the entry ports. So you start shutting places down and fortifying those openings. So I always tell people, the clients that hire me to help them through this process, is you need to start from the beginning, and you need to have a family plan. You need to have a family meeting. If you're a family of one, you have a meeting with yourself. If you have a larger family, you meet with everyone, and you talk about this concept. Now, I do these things sometimes with neighborhoods, and we'll all huddle together, we'll go out on the street, and we'll just look at someone's house from the street and say, okay, everybody pretend that you're a burglar or a home invader. How would you approach this house? And everybody come up with different ideas. But it's surprising that it's how obvious it is. Everybody will say, well, here's a window standing open. I would go for that. Or if I go up and knock on the door, or I would look under the mat for the hidden key or the flower pot or wherever, something might be hidden. And pretty soon they'll see for themselves, man, if I just close these windows, or if I want to have molten for ventilation, I'm going to put a secondary device in the window, like a little dowel or stick in the track that'll prevent it from opening more than 6 inches. I'm going to fortify the deadbolt on my front door. I'm going to make sure my door is nice and strong. And I'm going to put a heavy-duty strike plate in that door so someone can't simply come up and kick the door open. Now, they're going to have to make a lot of racket before they get through that door. And then you talk about in your family meeting about having a plan. If someone knocks on the door or rings the bell, you have to teach your families to not simply walk up and open the door. Even if you believe you live in the best neighborhood in the country, you need to find out who's on the other side of the door before you open it. Plain and simple. And you have to teach all of the children that technique. That alone will prevent probably the majority of the home invasion robbers that are able to get immediate access to you. Now, the same thing goes with windows. Windows can be broken if you live a high-risk lifestyle, or if you're in a high-crime enough of an area, then you might have to fortify those windows a bit more. And there's strategies for that, from preventing them from being forced open to prevent the glass from being broken. There's different types of glazing you can get to make the window shatterproof, or at least delay entry for a period of time so you can get the police coming, get the cavalry going. So that's a standard technique in all of this stuff. You want to put up significant barriers. You want to make the property look safer from the street. One good way is have that alarm sign in your lawn, advertising that I have an alarm, or I might have an alarm. That alarm might be set. If you break in, that alarm might go off. The police might come and arrest you. For most burglars or home invaders, that's enough. Why not just go down the street and get the home without those systems in place? Or they might come up and try your door. If the door is locked, they can't get in, they might put their shoulder to it. They might try to kick it a couple of times. If they don't get in, then they'll simply go down to the next place. And then you add layers to that. As your risk gets higher, or you have a greater desire to be more safe, you could add layer on top of layer on top of layer until you're living in a bunker.
Now, some of our viewers had sent in questions about that they wouldn't want the first indication to them to be when somebody was actually at their door, but they would want to know whether someone was coming onto their property, coming even close, that sort of thing. Are there specific techniques that you recommend for that, for perimeter monitoring?
Unfortunately, that's too vague of a question. A perimeter doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know how far away that is. I don't know if there's any structures in between. I don't know what the sight lines are, what kind of visibility we have. But just going with the vague question, that's what fences are for. Things that define your property line. So even if it's a low fence, and I take groups out all the time and show them, here's a property with a fence that's about 3 feet high. Well, you can almost step over it. But that low fence defines that beyond that fence is private property. Now, if you support that with a sign, a no trespassing sign, for example, a beware of dog sign, I got a beware of dog sign on my gate. And guess what? I don't own a dog. Or people will put a dog bowl out on their front porch, this big bowl, or a collar out there with a large neck size to indicate maybe you have a large dog. I mean, things like that are in the areas before you get to the door that are sort of sending the signal to, potential burglars or home invasions that this is a protected house. So a fence, a gate, the fence could be varying heights. It just depends on what the situation is. I mean, there's some high-tech, James Bond type solutions. There's perimeter alarm systems. There's laser systems. There's infrared systems. I mean, there's alarms, things you could put underground, sensors, motion sensors, noise detectors. I mean, you can go, very deep into all these things if your need is that great or your paranoia level is that high.
Bringing it back to the actual front door of the home being a common point of entrance if people were subject to a home invasion. If either the family made a mistake and opened the door without really, determining that the people on the other side are legitimate or that sort of thing, or if the actual door gets forced in despite having been strengthened, what are the next considerations that should be part of a family's plan if actually a threat enters the home?
Well, at that point, it should be about escape. Someone that's part of your family plan, and you have to decide if that's what you're willing to do. But in my opinion, someone should always be trained to escape and then know what to do when they escape. Basically, they want to get the police coming. They want the cavalry coming. That sort of starts the stopwatch, letting the invaders know that the police are coming, and now, I got to get out of there. So however you do that, depending on the configuration of your house, if you have back doors, if you have windows, people can get out, have a plan. And every family member, they'll really get into this too, about where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do, and if I'm going to run to the next door neighbor's house or across the street, or exactly what I'm going to do. You work out all those details. And you could have drills. You could do it once a year. Some places do that. They have an annual review of their home security plan. That's the same time they change the batteries in their smoke detectors or their alarm panel, or they review their escape plan or any preparation they have. That's when they do it.
And that's an interesting concept about somebody having a designated role of being the one to escape and to call for help. I know when we had a Navy SEAL on talking about a related topic, he said that's not the time to be making up the plan in the heat of the moment. You already have to have that figured out. Who's the one that's going to call for help and who's the one that's basically going to deal with, or if there is anybody who's going to have to deal with additional actions taken inside the home, so that you're not scrambling for whose job it is and nobody ends up making the call for help, that sort of thing. What other jobs beyond that? The other consideration that comes to mind is in like concealed carry training, where they talk about the domestic castle. You don't have a legal duty to retreat from your own home, that you have a reasonable expectation that if you fear, based on someone invading, that your family is at risk of serious harm because that person invaded knowing full well that you were there, that you don't automatically have a duty to retreat. But it sounds like from what you're saying, it's a very practical matter, is that if someone at least retreats, that they can, if they escape, they can call for help. What about those who would remain behind? What actions should they, what roles and what preparations should they make?